Yo, what it did, y'all? Let's get right into it. It's an exciting time, ain't it, y'all? Patch notes just dropped, the announcement just dropped. I'm still caught up in the whirlwind of having my power come back on 10 minutes where patch notes came up. We slept and recovered a little bit, y'all, but like we got a lot to do, right? So a little all over the place. But the important thing right now is goodness gracious, y'all. These Endgame Atlas updates are exciting as fuck. Like unbelievably exciting. I am so happy to see these changes come through because I think it's very important that in a game as wide as PoE is, we don't leave things behind. One of the worst things about having a broad, expansive, deep game is to lack incentive to engage with all of the different avenues in which you can play the game through. And that's always just been a general complaint of mine over the years is that we have to make sure that we undeprecate old content or just give them reason to compete in a modern landscape. And I think the changes that we're getting this patch are a fantastic example of that, as well as actually bringing back some stuff that has not been a part of the game in a little while, right? So let's talk about it, right? But before we get into all that, like the video if you like these type of videos. And if you want to see more of when I post and know when I post, subscribe to the channel and hit those notifications so you actually know when we put up videos. Now, let's talk because it's a couple really important changes. I'm going to start with the one like really notable nerf that I think stands out. And it's because I think this will affect a lot in the economy. And that is the ghost nerfs. The tormented spirit nodes on the tree got nerfed a little bit. Speaker of the Dead actually got a buff, so you actually could touch more monsters when you're self-ghosted, which is cool. I don't really know how much that actually affects anything. I don't know a lot of the numbers around touch and possession. That's not that important to me. What is more important though, related to ghosts, is the changes to Unrelenting Torment and other related like ghost nodes. A lot of quantity from possessed or touched monsters got removed from the Atlas tree, just flat out removed, not reduced, just removed. And that is a very interesting change because on the surface, it seems very dumb and weird, especially if you think about like what like the Atlas farming looked like later in this league, but it gets really abusive for ridiculous combinations such as like the ghosted meat sacks that we had last league, or another place you're going to really feel this is in the inflation of the divine early league, because a common early league strategy is to rush ghosted exiles with seance for chaos recipe, like rapidly doing chaos recipe, especially on magic finding characters, which also got massively nerfed. And by that I mean quant is gone, or if you were playing in a group setting, you would also then you have to leverage your party quant to do the same thing. So a lot of nerfs in the direction of early generation of these types of these resources, which could actually keep divines from inflating beyond 100 chaos so quickly. It's been a long time since 100 chaos has actually been the price that I would go to bed at on divines. Like I remember a time where divine / exalts were like 80 to 90 chaos at my bedtime instead of 100 and so that's actually really cool. Love to see that. We'll see how that actually pans out, but it's just something to keep an eye on, right? Now for all of the exciting like buffs and changes and whatnot that are actually going to like get you like worked up, I just need to get that one like nerf out of the way because I don't want to drag down and sully the mood of the rest of this fucking video. Now let's get into that. So one, Delirium. We saw this in the teasers ahead of time. I'm just highlighting it here. If you didn't see those teasers and you might have just not read the patch notes in full or whatever, who knows, or you just like were skipping through or just forgot because there's a lot of fucking words. 15 waves of the simulacrum have been removed. It is now just effectively waves 16 through 30, which means that you are now going to get the good rewarding waves with the actual waves that have content in them, as opposed to 15 waves of drooling at your damn keyboard. That's all that change really is. Drooling at your keyboard for 15 waves sucked ass. And it was like the number one reason that I think most people didn't interact with the simulacrum, which is why simulacrum also has always been so cheap in recent memory. Your character's outgeared. Hell, we outgeared the first 10 to 12 ways of simulacrum back when simulacrum was added. And so, but back then the rewards were also new that you needed to do every wave to get it and whatnot. And as the game evolved, the first 10, then 15 waves become fucking obsolete. So very excited to see those getting removed. I think simulacrum will be in a much better spot. We also got a slight buff to Unending Nightmare to make Delirium difficulty double the scaling that it gets with distance from the mirror. Unending Nightmare is the perma mirror that's on the keystone that's on the tree. And I believe that this means that you'll actually see bosses more often in your permadeli maps. And the like map bosses of these maps will most likely be more lethal. That's going to be very fun to play with. Very excited for that. Next up, Ritual. A lot of base type buffs, as well as the return of Affliction Corpses. Affliction Corpses are now going to be purchasable rewards in Ritual. God bless, those are cool. Even if they are getting rebalanced, I think just having access again to stuff like maybe the lightning damage is Lucky Totem, or the marionettes for cool on death stuff with like Guardian's Blessing. Like, I think there's a lot of cool stuff that can come as a result of these specters being returned to the game. Very excited. This also means that like Hydras, for example, might actually be back into the game. No idea how their tuning is going to be, but they might actually be back in the game. That's going to be really cool. Also, base buffs for like the ritual specific bases. Number one, you can't see the shitty bases anymore in maps. God bless. Those should not have been in maps at all. And when you're actually in T16s and T17s, you'll only see the good tier, like the real tier, because there are 3 tiers, right? So you'll only see the top tier in their good maps. Good, good, good. Now, as far as the bases themselves, I am most excited personally for Archdemon Crown and Penitent Mask, as those are just stats that I like most immediately identified as insane buffs. Archdemon Crown going from exposure on hit, which lame, to +2 to skill gems and -2 to support gems is a ridiculously strong change, as you are basically just slapping on +2 on top of an helmet that can already have +2, and then like Essence of Horror and Hypothermia and base crit. You see what I'm getting at? Like this creates some incredible top end options for helmets. We're probably going to see some absolutely ridiculous pseudo helmet setups made out of this, especially because I like the fact that this can get early +2 in a different way to better support pseudo linked setups. I am a huge fan of pseudo linked setups being good in the game, so I'm a large fan of Archdemon Crown. Penitent Mask, as much as I think the Maximum Fortification was actually pretty good, I like Max Chaos Res better as just more support for Divine Flesh characters. I think Divine Flesh characters are super fucking cool, and so I'm always happy whenever I see them getting more support in the game. I also want to give a small shout out to Dream Quest Slippers, because I believe that this buff is starting to put them really close to being able to replace something like the Stampede in something such as like the Frostwake of Wintry Blast characters that we used previously, or like Lightning Warp characters. The idea being these movement skill trigger builds, like the CDR you need on movement skills on those to really feel fluid is pretty fucking high. But I think this pushes Dream Quest Slippers into a position where they can almost edge out Stampede, which is really cool. As well as the other base type buffs do actually look very interesting, but I have not figured out exactly what I would do with them yet. So I'm mostly putting them on the radar for you to go and figure out what to do with them, or tell me that I'm stupid for missing something obvious, right? Hey, look, if you see something obvious with them, let me know. I want to know. Now, other than those things, we also got Ultimatum. I mentioned this in my loot video, but I've got to mention it again here because it'd be crazy if I talked about in-game updates and didn't talk about Ultimatum. Ultimatum getting loot back is insane, right? That was like one of the 2 things they fucked up when they brought Ultimatum back to us. For those of you who were with us, Ultimatum in its actual league was one of those league mechanics that everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were like, yo, this is kind of cool. Like, I stand in a circle, I kill some fucking monsters, I get a little bit of bubblegum currency, and then I get some gear from the kill monsters I kill. And it's a good time. And then GDG was like, okay, hear me out though. We're going to take it out of the game for a while because we don't know what to do with this mechanic. And you go, okay. And then they bring it back finally. And we're like, holy shit, they're bringing it back. And it's replacing Metamorph, which if you're most people, you didn't really care. If you're me, I actually was really hurt by the removal of Metamorph. It's one of my favorite mechanics that ever have existed, and I'm really sad that it is gone. And so Ultimatum replacing Metamorph for me was a really big deal because you took a mechanic I actually liked investing into and replaced it with a fucking dog shit ass mechanic, at least in this current iteration, right? Before this patch, the like version that we got of Ultimatum back sucked ass. They fucked up the rewards from the per wave. They made the monsters unbelievably tanky, right? Like it is a tough combat challenge in there. And then they took all the loot away from it. Like the monsters just straight up didn't drop loot. Do you know how ridiculous that is? Like, not, oh, they don't drop maps. Oh, they don't drop. No. They just didn't drop loot because of stupid group play abuse, stupid dumb shit with standing outside the circle and the way that Quant scales with it. And they were so scared of it destabilizing the game's loot economy or just actually crashing servers that they just like took all the loot out of it in general. Which, let me tell you very clearly, obviously you don't need to be told this, but I'm saying it anyways because it's on my mind and it's in my heart. Taking loot away from something is the fastest way to make it not worth fucking interacting with, especially if you make it that goddamn hard. Like, what the fuck were what were you thinking, GDG? I love a lot of what you do, but what were you thinking? Who is your dealer? I have to know. Anyways, Very happy that that's getting undone and we're at least getting the loot back. Sucks the reward structure isn't going to be adjusted, but I think the reward structure is not the current problem, right? I think the loot on the ground is a lot bigger of a problem, so I'm very excited to see that getting changed finally. Now, in addition to the changes to old mechanics, we have new mechanics. Or new mechanics, right? New as in like old mechanics that haven't been in the game since they've been gone. Wildwood, right? The Affliction Wildwood, even though it's only a league removed, that's coming back now in T16s and 17s. With, you know, the Nameless Seer no longer actually being directly a part of that, or the King of the Mist, because the King of the Mist is actually now a thing that's tied to ritual, if I remember correctly. But the Wildwood's coming back, so we can turbo juice our mass a little bit harder. Probably not to the same degree as we were able to do in Affliction, by the way, but it'll still be pretty cool to have back, I guess. Not the biggest fan of it personally, but I appreciated the top end combat challenge that it provided. There's also going to be the return of Sentinel and Kalandra League's mechanics as well, which I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Sentinel coming back for me is a bit of a fucking whatever, because I did not actually find the mechanic of Sentinel particularly intriguing. I only liked the crafting from Sentinel, and the crafting from Sentinel, we don't get to craft our Sentinels ourselves, and there's no battery system or any of that, but we do have recombinators in the new league mechanic. So I don't know how much I should care about Sentinel coming back, but I mean, you know, as a one click button, buff things up type of get better loot thing, like it's cool. I'm fucking with it. And then Kalandra coming back is actually the thing in here. Like you thought I was hyped and on 10 for the Ultimatum change. I'm actually even more hyped and on 10 for this. Like Kalandra is one of those things that I've been missing, and it's not because I wanted the actual mechanic itself back. The actual mechanic itself, I was always really 50-50 with because it launched really poorly, but they tuned it up really nicely by the end. But specifically, I like the unique opportunities that Kalandra provided. If you are unaware what the hell a Kalandra League was, the core reward from the mechanic was items that were amplified and inverted. The idea being that you could have insanely high values of positive stats in one domain and insanely negative values of a stat in a different. So for example, you may have seen clips, if you like look around after watching this, for like the negative proj feed Spectral Helix character, where the Spectral Helix character has like almost 100 helixes like in a tiny orbit around them because they're stacking over 90% reduced projectile speed to keep them all nearby, right? So that they keep hitting so many fucking times. Or you end up with things like negative lightning res on these rings for Doriani's prototype characters, right? Or just having an insane amount of life on a ring because that's not a thing that you usually can get that much flat of, right? Etc. Having the ability to do this again is going to be really cool. I'm glad that they brought back both the pre-mirrored items and the ability to reflect your own items. I was glad to see that they brought both of those back, especially because the thing that I'm most excited for about this is that there were base types that were exclusive to this mechanic. There's a ring, I believe it was called the Dusk ring. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It'll pop up on the screen. But there was a ring base that gave increased or reduced skill effect duration as the implicit based on which slot it was in. And it only came from this reflecting mist in the mechanic. It never got added as a base drop type or anything. It only came from this mechanic. And I'm really hoping that this base comes back to us, because it was just one of those things that I find really cool because it gave me an alternative to Time Clasp in that slot for certain builds, which if you want to know more about that, you're just going to have to wait till I talk more about it. You know what I'm saying? I can't tip all my secrets out the hat, right? Now, all that said, though, this is looking to be an exciting as fuck patch. Like, you know, I felt like I needed to shine some light on how much of the game is actually changing this patch, right? You know, we're all on 10 about the melee changes that are incoming. There's the general just quality of life changes up the ass, fucking auction house, new league mechanic, just this league is looking like a certified heater, but I wanted to make sure that I highlighted the good changes that were being made to older parts of the game as well, because this is just shaping up to be a fucking fantastic patch. Anyways, you want to see more of what I do, of course, again, subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that stuff. If you want to see me more in other places, I have a Discord in the description that I am extremely active in, as well as a Twitch that I do go live on. Both of those are in the description. Come check it out. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.